You guys have been doing this longer than I have. 11 offers on fuchsia. I just, for the fun of it, combed through every single contract after we accepted an offer, and 8 out of the 11 were written incorrectly.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
You are people are hiring you for their biggest purchase.
As the managing broker over 350 agents, and you guys, although you guys do your crap right, I can't tell you how many of the stupid questions I get from agents. Well, I just put a magnifying glass on all of our 350 agents, right? But that's common in the industry. It blows my mind. Like when we take a new agent with our company, we make sure they have that contract with them. But how many times are we dealing with an agent who's been in the business 10 years, 5 years, crazy. And they're leaving crap blank? Now our 350
Jesus!
agents...
What happened?
I gotta go. My
just blew out.
All right.
Yeah.
And now we've lost every viewer that ever watched us.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say, is even harder to find.
All right, here we are, hot August days. It's about 100 degrees outside, right?
Nice.
I know, and it's about 95 degrees in here.
Well, with Jacob's lights.
No, I think it's air conditioning in this place. We had to talk to the landlord. But anyway, Market Minute, here we go. Big change from this time to the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago when we had our last podcast.
Okay.
We are now down to 1,150 single-family homes in Santa Clara County.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So we've been trending 1,300, 1,400 for the past few weeks. However, if you listen to our last podcast, we said exactly this. Middle of August, things will start to decline in terms of number of inventory, and it will decrease between now and the end of the year. I'm guessing we'll have probably 600 homes in January.
And you and I talked about that, right? I mean, it's like as we get into third, fourth quarter, that's exactly what's going to happen. The people that are, and yet the clients that are out there, or the buyers and sellers that are out there, are going to be more motivated to make something happen, right? Now, you don't get the sellers now saying, well, just go ahead and I'll throw it out there and see what happens. That inventory is going to continue to go down, and thus the reason why I keep saying the sky's not falling, guys.
No.
Inventory's so low.
Case in point, last week, I sold 5 listings in 3 days.
There you go.
These are listings that sat on the market for weeks.
What was the average days on the market on those?
Between 32 and 48.
Okay.
So they sat right through.
Price reductions?
Yeah, we did price reductions,
Okay.
but we hadn't done recent price reductions.
Yeah.
The price reductions were about a week or so old.
Right.
Next thing you know, last week, people started, just kind of circling, and then we got multiple offers on 2 of them, and like I said, we sold 5.
But in San Jose alone, this past month, the average price point is down $75,000.
Yeah, which
I know.
makes
But those
sense.
average,
But it's
I
okay.
guess.
Things are still selling.
All right, and just to wrap up the minute, pendings are up. We got 808 pendings for single-family homes, and Class 2 condos, townhomes are down as well. We only got 550 to choose.
Down in inventory.
Yeah.
We got 550 to choose from. Price decreases are still there. We had about 195 properties in the last 7 days had a price decrease, so about 13% of total inventory.
So I got to tell you, I have several clients that we're working with right now, sellers specifically, and they're curious, do we wait till January, February, or do we put it on now? I'm saying, listen, everybody's back from summer now. Graduations are over, all that stuff's happening or done happening. I think it's a great time to list. I really do. Interest rates have come down. They're more reasonable now. They're not, we're not worrying about going to 5.5%, 6.5%.
Although September, right? Fed's going to meet
Meeting
again.
sure.
They're going to probably raise it at least half a percentage point. So if
buy
I'm
now.
a buyer, yes,
Buy now.
absolutely, I buy between now and when the Fed meets. In
Mark my
September.
words. I know we're always into these predictions. I will guarantee you there's going to be buyers out there that come February, March say they should have bought.
Absolutely.
This time of year. They should have bought.
I thought you guys would never ask what I journaled earlier. I've been a journaler recently. May I share?
Please.
Common question I've been getting. I did an Instagram about it a couple days ago. Should I buy a home or wait? Here's what I wrote. Buying a home in any market is a highly personal decision. It's pretty much the biggest single purchase of your life.
It's a highly personal decision.
Mark, I'm getting in my
I'm
feelings.
listening. No, I love this.
It's important to
Yes.
be in a solid financial position before diving in. Timing the market or making predictions on the market is not the best strategy. Buy on a budget that fits your needs. Choose an area that you love that fits your budget. And if you're making too many sacrifices in the homes that you're able to afford, then you're probably going to have buyer's remorse and it's not a good decision, and you're ultimately going to have to unload an asset and not maximize the value when you want to sell.
I'll piggyback on that real quick. I mentioned that a couple podcasts ago, that when I have buyers, we determine whether to go after the full pre-approval price or to go after what your budget is and what you want to stay under. And that's exactly it. You have to know your budget, whether that means starting a savings plan to get to where that budget needs to be and that down payment needs to be to make sure those monthly payments are a certain price, whether that means paying off debt and credit and having a plan of X amount of months or 1 year from now. It's huge.
I know one of the things, to your point, we consult with our buyers all the time. As much as we love our mortgage partners out there, sometimes our mortgage partners are looking at how far can they stretch the buyer to. And to your point, there's a difference between what you can afford and what your comfort level is, right? There's a major difference between those two, right?
And everyone has walked into an open house, and there's most of the time a very cringy agent who asks very off-putting questions. I have found that asking something along the lines of, hey, where are you comfortable on price point?
100%.
Not what the bank's approving yet. Where are you comfortable? You've probably run a mortgage calculator to see, hey, this is what's comfortable.
And you see that a lot with new home buyers as well, because you don't necessarily need to stretch your bank account out for your first home. You know, it's okay to stay conservative and still have money to invest, travel.
Correct. Yeah, and you don't know what you don't know.
Right. So and to add on what you said, I mean, I always tell a home buyer, ensure that you're buying in a decent area. Like in our area, I always focus on like the 85 corridor. Those have always held their value pretty well, right? And always buy a house that you're not going to be strapped to, not just financially, but also size-wise, right? If you're a brand new couple who might be looking at having a kid in the next couple of years, stay away from a one-bedroom apartment, because at some point you're going to outgrow that house, or one-bedroom condo. At some point you're going to outgrow that property. If you're going to stretch at least to a two-bedroom, so that resale value is going to be able to accomplish what you need to before you leapfrog into the next house.
But also, one thing to add, if someone out there that's watching this is starting that pre-approval process, let them generate the maximum pre-approval price. And then when we are looking at houses and making offers, we will tailor that pre-approval letter to the actual price that you're offering. Because if you're pre-approved for $1 million and we're only offering $800,000, well, we don't want to tip the seller that, hey, we actually could afford $200,000.
That's an interesting concept.
Or just a little bit higher.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, because I tend to generally not worry too much about that, because the conversation I have with my client and also their agent is, listen, affordability is a little bit different than where their desirability is. Correct. Right? David and I are working on a deal right now where he gave me proof of funds that are pretty much twice as much as what this house is worth, and they're paying all cash. So we can easily look at that and say, oh, they can afford it. But the reality of it is that person buying it might say, hey, I can afford it or not. Here's where the value is.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's a very emotional process.
The one thing I do like seeing, and this could be a conversation, the one thing I do like seeing in those pre-approval letters, it does show the financial viability and how strong that buyer is.
And you know what, to me, that represents the most is, sure, they could afford it. We could afford to do a lot of things that we don't do. But the buyer dictates the value. They only see 100%. It being worth maybe 1.4.
Right. 100%.
Mr. Seller, I know you think it's worth 1.6, but we don't.
And it doesn't matter if they can afford it higher or not. No. That's where they're.
So just because you're not on the same price, if you're a buyer in the wavelength as the seller, just submit anyways. The worst they can say is no. But it gets the conversation rolling.
Yeah, especially in a market like this.
To the age-old question, put pen to paper, right?
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Good one. You're learning. Good stuff.
That was poetic.
Ben and I did a lot of research.
What'd you do to your knuckle, man? Did you have some fun, like, beat somebody up this weekend?
Moving forward.
Anyway, you and Ben did a lot of talking.
We did a lot of. We were prepared.
We were brainstorming today.
And I see that.
Nice. Awesome.
I sure hope you brought a top 10 list.
I did not. I wanted to give everybody a break.
Okay.
And I figured you guys could, when I saw how much you guys have written down, I didn't want to add to it.
I got a mustache minute that kind of leads in from your buyer question.
Go ahead.
Now, mustache minute. Now, when you choose your lender, it matters more than I think buyers think it matters. Don't just click the first lender you see on Zillow or the internet. When choosing a lender, especially in our market with how competitive it is, 100% have to be in the same time zone. It's so interesting when you get a lender, they just click on it.
Off topic.
No, they click on a lender. They're from Michigan. We're in a multi-counter offer situation at night. They can't answer their phone because it's 1 o'clock there. It's 11 o'clock here. Next thing you know, we're out of competition.
Right. Ben, this is good.
Thank you. Another one, make sure they're communicative. It's like what you were saying, there's a difference between what that pre-approval is and what you want to pay. And a good lender will guide you in the direction of making sure your payments are where you want to be and where you're comfortable. And the third, I think it has to have a good reputation. Just like agents in this area, a lot of agents know the lenders, and if they're working with the right lender or a lender they're comfortable with, it's a lot easier for them to go in and fight for you with the seller and make sure you're all on the same page.
Ben.
Great
Ben's
job.
getting good.
I'll be here next week.
There you go. Well, I mean, to that point, though, that's exactly why our clients come to us, right? Is those professional relationships that we have and the referrals that we have. There are trusted partners instead of, I mean, how many times, I know this all the time, where it's like, oh, I found somebody on the internet, or my friend used somebody in Arizona and they can do deals here in California. We know it's just going to create issues with it, rather than going with somebody we know and we trust. Now, listen, if our client has had somebody they've done multiple transactions with, absolutely awesome. Go with that person. And then once you do decide on your lender, especially after you write the contract, do not shop and do not switch lenders. That is a nightmare for us.
Oftentimes, lenders will help you get accepted, especially for
100%.
agents like you
100%.
guys who have been doing this forever. Oh, I know that agent.
Yeah.
That lender.
100%.
And that will save you more in that purchase price most likely than it will in whatever points they're charging you.
I great point.
But
I mean, I can definitely see a scenario where if it's a $10,000 spread and I got some lender out of New York or something compared to here, somebody we haven't experienced with, my recommendation would be, listen, you know this deal is going to get done.
And as for buyers who are watching, it is okay to talk to more than one lender before you get
Sure,
accepted
just
on an offer.
before
It is
you-
okay to bounce those around.
Yeah,
Even if you
100%.
have someone, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, a private company, it's okay to talk to someone else. Get another opinion, understand where they're coming from.
But if you're only shopping rate and you have some Joe Schmo who can't get a hold of, blah, 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 what is your opinion in the fact that if you go with someone, maybe the local guy is just a little bit higher in rate and he doing everything we can, comes with great, recommendations, we like him, most likely you're going to refinance anyways down the road. So
Well,
why are you so hell
What you
bent
don't
on
want
that
to
one
do is
person?
go on the internet and start figuring out who's going to give you the best rate on the internet, because we all know that it's a moving target, right? So, yeah. So
Ben, that's a good one.
Thank you. That was my
stuff.
Mustache Minute.
Awesome.
All right. I have a tip of the day. My tip of the day is
No, just move on.
my tip of the day.
Yes, okay.
Is if you are a seller, I believe you will sell for a significant increase in value if your house is vacant. If you can leave for the house for at
sure.
least seven days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the showings you want. Ideally, we have your home sold in 7 to 10 days.
Accessibility is huge.
Yeah, I would say that increases your sales price from 3 to 6% easy.
Yeah, easily.
Like go on vacation.
And have it staged, have it look
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're not
Get rid of the clutter.
stressed. Yeah, especially right now. Those homes that people are living in, they're not shining as bright.
Correct.
That was my tip of the day.
Okay.
My question from the audience is, when is the deal actually done?
When is it?
So we have a September 1st closing date, and she said, Aaron, because she asked to move, when is this thing actually done? And I said, unfortunately, it's not done until the escrow is closed. A million things can happen. People could back out. People could change their mind. Someone could die.
Yep.
I mean, anything could happen. right?
We've talked about this many times, and what we tell our clients is, and you should be used to this.
This is the best
A close of escrow date is like an expectation date.
Why
with
should I be
pregnancy,
used to that?
Right? Well, you will be.
It's like a due date.
Because the whole point with it is, and even the state of California, and we have to advise our clients that. So you get a buyer who they're looking at a September 1st closing date, and there's a challenge because you want to get all the movers dialed in and all that stuff. But how many times have we had it where the buyer sets up having that moving come in on September 1st, and there's a reasonable delay that California state allows. So it's like if you miss that date by 2 or 3 days, you can't just penalize the seller over that.
Or they're 2 weeks from closing and they buy a car.
Yeah, well, God, that's a whole other issue, creditworthiness, right? So I always tell people, listen, it's just like a pregnancy expectation date. Expect a 3 to 5 day reasonable delay. As we get closer, we'll know where it's at. But do not pop open the champagne, or Mr. or Mrs. Seller, don't go out there and start spending money until you get that money in your bank account.
Yeah. She said, what could go wrong?
I have
said
had deals.
1,000 things.
They don't happen that often, but very early on in my career, we had a deal the day before we're supposed to close. The buyer's agent calls up and says, we're not closing. I'm like, what do you mean you're not closing? Well, and then it's like, oh, we're going to get your earnest money deposit. Well, no, we're going to sign we're not going to sign the cancellation. We're going to hold it up and everything. So yes, things happen all the way until that time of recordation.
Thank you. David?
You know, I've just been quiet the whole
Yeah, he's been
podcast,
pretty
and
quiet.
I'm chilling. I'm good.
All right.
I'm just sitting back and admiring all of the effort and planning that you guys have put in.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I have a
That's
question then. Here's one from the audience.
right.
This is actually from a buddy's parent. Should I sell before the crash or wait until the next boom?
Wait,
And we kind of went over this. No, this was the buying side, so this is the selling side.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of bleeds into it. Obviously, you want to have your financial situation done properly, but again, in a market, I think that's so competitive, it comes down to making sure your property is shown in the best light. You just don't want to throw a property on the market.
So my response to that is it's always what is the seller's objective, okay? For somebody who's looking to retire, and as we know in our area, the majority of people have huge amount of equity and their retirement is in their home, right? I would advise them, if they're looking to retire in the next 3 to 5 years, go ahead and sell now. If you look at all the indicators, we're on this 10-year run that usually cycles every 5 to 7 years. Well, we don't believe it's going to be a sky is falling. However, if you've got somebody, they bought a house in Amman Valley for $500,000, it's now worth $2.5 million. There's some significant equity in that. If the market shifts at least 10%, which we've already seen, well, there's $250,000 they're leaving on the table for their retirement.
So I'm going to be devil's advocate because I know there's probably some buyers who are thinking the same thing. What about the taxes we have to pay on it?
Listen,
What, capital gains?
Here's
Well,
what I
you're going to have that no matter what.
Well, I know the answer to this.
I'm going to tell you. Here's what I not the buyers.
sellers,
I mean
for
the
the
sellers.
sellers.
Here's what I tell a seller. Right. For one, primary residences were never meant to be an investment. We were lucky enough here in Silicon Valley, and thank God you bought in the orchards of Silicon Valley rather than the orchards of Stockton or Fresno. And you've had a significant gain. So yes, you have. But you know what? What's it worth for you to be able to move on to the next chapter in your life? So yes, Uncle Sam's there. Death and taxes. It's always going to happen. And just so everybody knows, if it's your primary residence, you've lived in there for the last two out of 5 years, right? You have a $250,000 exclusion per person. So in that example, if you bought the house for $500,000, you're selling it for 2.5. Forgetting about selling expenses and improvements, stuff like that, you basically have a $2 million gain. You take $500,000 out of it, you have taxes of $1.5 million.
But you have that everywhere.
No matter where you go.
Yeah.
And fortunately, if you did, thank God you bought it here, because if you did bought it in Stockton or Fresno, that house will only be worth $800,000.
But I think it's also important to remember if you're selling something, chances are you're going to be buying something in the same market
Sure.
that you're selling in.
Sure.
Right? So
Yeah. Well, and that's a benefit now with California. If they move within California, Proposition
50.
50
or 55?
Oh, now you really just screwed with me.
19,
It used to be
39.
Proposition 16 and
Stump the
19.
broker.
Oh, that is a really good stump question.
and that
Prop,
was
Prop 19. Prop 19?
It was property
Okay,
transfer.
but the whole point is,
to Lake
it
County.
allows, if you're 55 years or older, you can transfer.
It was Prop
so that
19.
person who bought that $500,000 house can now go to San Diego.
Or Eldorado. Actually,
Eldorado.
Eldorado.
Hills.
San Diego is now a recent
Okay.
adapter.
Point is, you can transfer your property tax basis up to $1 million, right? And then anything over that, they'll reassess. But it does give a little bit of
Flexibility.
That's how my
flexibility.
parents moved.
Yeah.
But one thing to add is that people that are worried about that are the same people that said, last year, I'll wait for the market to slow down a little bit before I enter. Oh, now the market's slowed down a bit. Where are you at? It's going to crash. Okay.
You know, a great friend of mine and one of our fellow brokers has always made that comment that the crystal ball is broken.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier on, to try to predict where this market's at,
And that's exactly what it means when you ask these questions. When's the right time to buy? When's the right time to sell?
Now,
Well, when can you predict the market?
Now,
Can you
because
predict
now
it?
you know what the
Yeah.
market is.
You
and,
buy
as long as you've owned that house for 5 to 7 years, you're going to make money off it. It's been proven time and time again, going back 40, 50 years. The people that have a problem are going to be the ones that are relocating out here. They got a 2-year contract with their company, and they're going to be out of here in 2 years. Well, you got selling costs and everything else. So even if the market goes up, good luck. But if you're 5 to 7 years, that's a golden time period.
You buy real estate and wait. You don't wait to buy
It's a
real
marathon.
estate. Speaking of which, you may have said actually a few months ago, you don't believe we're in a going to have a housing crash, but more maybe of an economic crash not crash, but correction with stocks and things like that. Michael Burry, which, does that name ring a bell?
No, not at all.
Actually?
Should it?
Yeah.
Oh.
He
You read more than I do.
The movie The Big Short. Yeah, so he's the one that predicted all of that. He made millions and millions of dollars. Anyways, he went ahead and sold out of every single position that he had in the stock market with his company yesterday, except for a company called GEO Group, and they invest in private prisons and mental health facilities. Other than that, he's completely out, and so are all of his investors.
So when all of our buyers can't buy a home and our sellers lost their minds, they can all end up in their psych.
I find that very interesting. I'm sure he's smarter than I am. However, in a market where it's gone down, I personally think it's foolish to sell instead of buy. I mean, I've been buying like crazy right now as the market's come down, the stock market and stuff. I mean, it's...
Well, yeah, we talked about it yesterday. If you're in it for the long term, go ahead and
marathon.
buy right now.
Yeah, look at what Warren Buffett is buying right now, right? I mean, you know, your big short guy.
What is he buying
is
right now?
one guy. I'm going to save that for the next podcast because we're almost out of time.
Okay. Well, I got two little tech segments.
That's all, folks.
It's the Aaron and Ben show.
Ben brought up that...
Oh, are we giving financial and investment advice now?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm just telling you
Just
what
another
Apple
tip.
and Netflix are doing. Apple is bringing back all their employees 3 days a week starting September 5th.
Tell them what's happening to Netflix. Tell them.
Netflix has now made available 2 structures on their main campus, available for sublease for 160,000
Yep.
square feet.
Remember when I said months
And-
ago they're losing all their employees and now they're subleasing their property?
And something big. Does the name Adam Newman ring a bell?
Yes.
Which he is known for.
You know Adam
I know.
from on the block?
Was he
He's
on the
famous
Mad
for trade.
magazine?
He trademarked the word "we."
Okay.
WeWork.
Yeah.
He is now the highest funded ever new residential real estate company. He created a company called Flow, and the premise is it's going to create a housing utopia for remote workers. It was just funded by a big Silicon Valley firm. Thought that was super interesting.
There's a sucker born every
Awesome.
minute.
You don't think it will work, Dave? Dave, I think you're relatively negative.
You know, why don't you ask SoftBank how we worked out?
Speaking of which, Compass no longer pays agents.
stop.
SoftBank.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
no longer
you can
pay
edit that out.
agents
Incentives.
or
Yeah,
stock.
no stock incentives
Well,
and no
I mean,
financial
a
incentives.
lot of people want to know how we choose our companies. Well, there you have it. Someone got paid $500,000 to go to Compass. Oh,
Yeah.
they're the leading market share.
They
Well,
also said they plan on cutting $300 million in expenses by the end of the year.
Yep.
And lastly, your opinion on the new construction boom. Places like Phoenix have seen a huge increase in cancellations.
Yep.
They're at 30% of canceled contracts in Phoenix from year to date, which is up 15%.
A lot of the new construction developers right now are actually holding off on their sales, believing that the market's going to come back. It's interesting.
And this is where we need to cut in the don't stop believing journey.
That's
song.
right. Perfect, right? It's true. It's true.
Yeah, it's going to be, long story short, I think between now and the end of the year, I think we've seen the majority of the correction in our local market.
I do agree.
I think there's still a
I
little
do
bit of
agree.
room to come
Yep.
down.
Yep.
Next year is going to bounce around. And
Yep.
we're going to find our bottom, and then come spring, I think we'll pick back up.
David, I look at this as a healthy market.
Absolutely.
There is more opportunities for buyers now than we have seen in the last 5 to 8 years. A motivated seller is going to benefit from the huge amount of equity and appreciation they've gained over the last few years. Yes, we have a slight correction, but it is still the best place to be in real estate for an investor, buyer, seller, and for agents and brokers ourselves.
But one thing that I wanted your opinion on real quick was
Yeah.
with the recent correction and a little bit more inventory, down again this week, but subjective values I think are playing a huge play right now on what's selling, right? Things are taking a little bit longer, but before, things like the pool got overlooked or something with a view, things like that.
Yep.
But there's no set number on what a pool is worth or what a view is worth
Sure.
or schools or something like that. What are your thoughts?
The buyer.
I mean, the buyers decide, yeah.
I mean, if a buyer wants a swimming pool, that buyer's going to pay more money for the house for the swimming pool.
Correct. But before, I didn't feel like it mattered as much.
Yeah, before there was just a mad dash to get into a home. Interest rates were low, inventory was low, so hey, let's just get something, deal with the stuff we don't like or,
Right.
later. Yeah, I think now definitely buyers are taking a step back and saying, hey, if I am going to lock in a 30-year fix at 5.5%, I'm going to make sure I get a house that meets my
Right.
needs. Right. So to your point earlier about like bad pictures and photography, things like that, the homes that are selling on the market right now, besides being priced right, show really well.
Yep.
Right? You can't, get those sellers out of the house, stage it, fix
Right.
it up, put it in its best light. Because I'm looking at properties online for clients right now too, and if the pictures suck,
Right.
or if the aesthetic doesn't look good, I don't spend more than 3 seconds on that
Right.
house. I move on.
Well, and the buyer's doing the same thing, right? The buyer has
Absolutely.
direct access to that, definitely.
Yep.
And step where I think to your point as well, I think it's more important for buyers and sellers to get away from the whole Zillow estimate right? Because Zillow only looks at price per square foot in the surrounding area. They don't look if they have those distractions like a transformer tower behind it or a busy road or any of those things,
It's
which
just
are
an
now more of a
algorithm.
bigger issue than they were.
I mean, I remember telling you like 6 months ago, hey, these people want to sell. They back to the biggest power lines.
Yep.
Those big
Sell it
silver
quick.
towers.
Yeah.
And they
Should
didn't
have sold
sell.
it 6 months ago.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
no, good luck.
there you go. All right, guys.
Well,
We're
hey.
So we got our
good talk.
last Jazz in the Plaz tomorrow night. This probably won't go out until then, but thank you everybody who's come out.
Music in the Park.
Yes.
This coming Sunday, which is going to be, does anybody know the date?
The 20th.
We'll just flash.
August
on the screen.
20th.
There you go.
All right. So Los Gatos, Music in the Park, last one this coming Sunday. Jacob will put the date on there. 20th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. If you haven't been out there, it's actually a great event. Good music.
Led Zeppelin, right? Is that
Led
this
Zeppelin,
week,
not the actual Led Zeppelin.
Oh,
but
really?
a cover
Damn.
band.
Just the cover band. Yeah.
But you will see an elevated VIP section directly across from the stage. You'll see our VKG group banner.
Yep.
Come by, point to the banner, say you're with us, and you will get in for free.
Make sure you point to the banner and say you're with them, not with Aaron. That didn't seem to work very well.
Yeah, it didn't work
Oh,
well.
we'll
Sorry,
figure that out.
But all right, guys. Good
All
talk.
right, man.
We'll see you
See
next
ya.
time.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.